the real game being played.
It is officially time for a new vision.
Did you?
Okay, cool.
Hold on a second, baby.
Value, which cannot be taken away by anyone or anything.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ashonda at Large, where we discuss faith, family, and the future of our community. I want to thank you for tuning in once again, and I hope that you are having a blessed day. I hope in spite of all of the challenges that we are facing globally, that you are okay. So before I get into today's discussion, I want to invite you all to like as well as to subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so. And please don't forget to hit that notification on your right, I believe it is, so that you can get my latest updates as they come out. I also want to remind you that if you do have some content that you would like me to review, if you would like to get in contact with me, or you have a prayer request or just to say hello, you can email me at ashonda@large11@gmail.com. Again, that's ashonda@large11@gmail.com. So we're going to go ahead and get into today's discussion. I want to thank all of you, first off, who watched my last video about the urban apologist and do they really care about our community. I believe that that video really got to the heart of what we're seeing. The problem between the differences of us is really a heart issue. So I've been thinking about this a little bit more, and I decided to go ahead a little bit further and to expound a little deeper on my initial video. And so this is very much from a scriptural place, but I want us to consider the current times in our culture. I want us to consider what we are seeing. We're seeing a heavy increase in white supremacy's tactics against us during this pandemic. We are seeing it all over the place. There's no denying it, that it is very clear that the dominant society wants to remain dominant and wants to keep us as a permanent underclass. From my understanding, there was a situation with the NYPD and that they were handing out masks to Caucasians, yet they were handing out fists and kicks to our fellow Hebrew brothers and sisters for not, quote unquote, social distancing. So we are seeing a very clear indication that race relations in America have not shifted or advanced or become different. We're seeing that the root of the establishment of this nation is just bearing its fruit. It's bearing its fruit in abundance. And many people would like us to believe that America has moved as a post-racial society. But it is very clear that when everything gets down to the quick, when it's a survival of the fittest operandi, that we will see how people really react. Their true colors will come out. In the same way in which Scripture says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, we are seeing the abundance of the heart of the dominant society toward the Negro people. Well, with that in mind, I got to think about the urban apologist, and I got to think about the reality that I feel very much like the end game of the urban apologist is to cause us as Israel to be in a permanent place of castration among Israel. Now, what I mean by castration is to literally cut off our power, to cut off our power source, our ability to identify and understand what got us here in the first place. You see, as long as I continue with this ideology that my blackness is a curse, because of course they won't tell you that, but essentially when you continue to position me underneath the lineage of Ham, you are also conditioning me to accept the definition of the Eurocentric Christian that came with that. Now, people, they can pretend like, oh, well, we can divorce this Hamite legacy from this curse of black skin. But no, it is tied. It is intrinsically tied together that we came here to be subjugated because of a curse on Ham. Now, of course, those of us who examine the scriptures can tell us immediately that there was no curse put upon Ham, but rather the curse was put upon Canaan, one of his sons, in which he had four. And it was not to be, as someone wisely said yesterday when I was looking at a live video from Sister E, that the curse of Canaan was not to be scattered and subjugated to the four corners of the earth. That was not the curse of Canaan. So this whole idea that we could be from the lineage of Ham is very problematic. But see, the problem with the urban apologist is that when they are causing us or trying to cause us to not look into our real identity, essentially what they're doing is trying to put out our fire. They're trying to stamp our fire out for finding the solution, the rightful solution to our problems. So let me tell you what that creates. When you have a people without an identity, without an understanding of the spiritual, the real roots as to why they have been subjugated, colonized and subjugated around the world. When you have a people like that, what you end up doing is creating false religion. You create a false paradigm and a false political rise, which ultimately leads to that people's very destruction. Case in point, what we are seeing is that many of our brothers and sisters have become fed up. They have become so fed up. They desperately are clawing and seeking for an understanding of why it is that we as a people have been targeted for total destruction. So they find themselves getting into Egyptology. They find themselves getting into Islam. And then what we're seeing is an uprise and what we see today as known as the Black militia. We see where our people are actually advocating and saying, let's rise up with guns blazing and let's go down for the count. Well, unfortunately, with even all of the vitriol that I understand and the anger that I understand that my brothers and sisters are dealing with, that strategy is going to result in the same thing that it resulted with those who were in the militia during the time of Yahusha. You see, the militia was led then by one named Barabbas. Barabbas means son of the Father, where Yahusha is the son of the Father. And Barabbas had an uprising against the Roman occupation. And because of this uprising, he was a murderer. Essentially, according to Romans, he was a murderer. And so he must be executed for his crimes against Rome. So when he was arrested, he was put between him and Yahusha, and our people were given a choice into who to decide. Do we choose the one who is going to give us, in our minds, a physical vengeance against these heathen Romans? Do we choose Barabbas, the one who is leading the militia? Or do we go with the one who is going to give us a kingdom-minded deliverance, a true deliverance? No, we have to reject Yahusha. You see, because I want results now. I want to be able to see the hand of my physical enemy cut off. And what did that result in? Well, many people will tell you different, but I firmly believe that at that moment, when our ancestors said, give us Barabbas and let his, Yahusha's, blood be upon our heads and the heads of our descendants, that they activated the Deuteronomy 28 curses, in which our people have been victims to ever since. So Barabbas was let go. But did Rome leave? Did Rome lose their power? No, in fact, they didn't. They actually became more powerful. And in doing so, we understand that in 68 AD to 70 AD, that is when our people were destroyed, taken out of the land, forcibly starved, eating their own babies. Our people were systematically targeted and destroyed for total annihilation. And those of us that escaped, our ancestors were scattered into the deeper parts of Africa. And if they weren't, then they were taken to Rome and they were made into slaves. And then they were, of course, taken around to West Africa through Sao Tome and then to the dispersal. And of course, this is not just the transatlantic slave trade that happened, but also through the Arab slave trade. But these curses got enacted. Why? Because our people chose wrong then. And what's happening is our people are choosing wrong again. And why? I don't blame our people. I do not blame our people for 1 minute. You see, because if you step on my foot, it hurts. Okay? And it is the natural inclination of a person to protect themselves. But the problem is that Yahushua said that to Pilate that my kingdom is not of this earth. Because if it was, I can call all of my boys to come here and we can handle this. But that is the wrong response because you are thinking carnally. We got to get down to the root of the matter. And when you go into the mind of the urban apologist, the root of the matter never takes precedence. The root of the matter continues to be ignored. And those who are waking up and starting a fire and a flame in the hearts of the people to identify and understand how we got here. They run after us to snuff that fire out. And this is very problematic. It is a house Negro versus field Negro mindset. You see, because the house Negro, they at least get some perks from the massa. Whereas the field Negro, his back is whipped. He is working hard labor all day without pay. He is tormented in the sun from early dawn to late dusk. And the house Negro says, "We sick, massa?" You see, that is the urban apologist mindset. They very much want to pretend as though they actually care about our overall community. They want to pretend, but they're not peddling any different doctrine than the evangelical Europeanity hustlers that are in these churches. They're not peddling any different doctrine. And that is the problem. They want us to continue to believe that what we've been fed year after year after year is true. They'll give out little pebbles. They'll say things like, "Oh, well, we know that Jesus wasn't white with blonde hair and blue eyes. We know that Moses didn't look like Charlton Heston." But they won't expound upon the reality that our Messiah, that our forefathers in the faith were one of us. They were one of us. They won't go that far. Because, see, to go that far means that, now I have to look at the root causes of how I got here in the first place. You see, because if we understood the root causes of how we got here, we'd understand that when Joshua was fighting for freedom for the children of Israel, that he had to go to war in order to get to the promised land. But he could not win a very simple battle in the flesh. He could not win a physical battle because there was a spiritual reality amongst his people. His people were idolaters. His people had taken the gold and the idols that belonged to the heathens. Though the Most High said, "Do not touch anything of theirs," took it and hid it. So this battle that was supposed to be won, that was so easy to be won, they lost. And they lost terribly. They had the might and they had the power and they had the vitriol and they were ready to go out and win and conquer. And yet the Most High was not with them. And this is what we're seeing today in America. This is what we're seeing amongst our people. We are seeing an urge and we're seeing a pull upon us to react in the flesh, yet we cannot win this physical battle because there are spiritual idols that we have not exposed. And when the urban apologist stops our people from really understanding who they are, you, in fact, end up taking that one who grew up in the black church, grew up in the white church, and turning them away from the church altogether. Turning them away from the faith. They become atheists. They become agnostic. They become Egyptologists. They become Muslims. They become anything but, or they become castrated Christians. They subjugate themselves. So I lay the feet at the blame of the Sanballats and Tobiases, known as the urban apologist. Those who would stop the erection of the building of Nehemiah so that they can continue to be a snare in the house of Yasharal. This needs to come to a place of repentance, because what we don't understand is the ground that we're building upon, as scripture says, the foundation is laid through Yahushua Mashiach. The ground that we are building upon, we have to build it carefully. We have to build it carefully because our words are powerful. And when our people are advocating for militia style retribution without the Spirit of the Most High Yah to give them the power, it is a failed mission. But they are tired. They are at this point tired because our lives are being slain in the streets. But see, the idolatry of Yasharal is the same idolatry that it was back then. We're in love with the gold of the land. We're in love with the hypersexualization. We're in love with the Baal and Molech worship, which puts our children to pass through the fire, i.e. abortion. We're in love with all of these things. We don't want to give up these things that we've gotten from the heathen, but at the same time, we want to fight the heathen and wonder why we don't win. Well, we cannot win until we understand the roots of why we lost in the first place, so that we can properly win, so that we can come up and rise up as we are supposed to. See, we got to take it back to the family. And this is why on this channel, my focus is on faith, family, and the future of our community. We've got to take it back home. No, we don't want to deal with the home. No, we have to deal with the home. Because if we have wives who are harsh to their husbands and disrespectful, if we have husbands who feel castrated and they're lazy and they don't want to do anything, if we have children who disrespect their parents, then how is the Most High Yah supposed to bless that? How is he supposed to make us a force to be reckoned with? You see, J. Edgar Hoover rightly said that it is Negro unity which is the most dangerous threat to the United States, because we do not yet understand that so goes the family, so goes the nation. So if we neglect the family inside of our house, urban apologists, if you neglect to deal with the family and the roots of how we got to where we got, and keep putting a false narrative, keep speaking the talking points of white supremacy, if you continue to do so, then our people will continue to lay slain in the streets, and the blood will be upon your hands. So I am here to advocate that you do a real heart search as to your motivation behind keeping our people ignorant of their true identity. And please don't give me any nonsense about there's no proof, because you can turn a blind eye to proof all day long if you want to. You can ignore the truth as long as you want to, but understand that when you kick against the pricks, as Saul did, you will find yourself knocked off your high horse. So yes, my language, the things of which I am saying, they are hard to deal with. But the reality remains the same, that if we are a people without an identity, then we are a people without hope. Well, that's all I have today for you all. I definitely want to know what you think. So please let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are on the castration of true Israel, by the Urban Apologist. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below, and I also invite you all to like as well as to share. Please get those likes up, y'all. I really appreciate how many people watched my last video. That meant so much to see that word getting out, and I pray that this was also a very impactful and moving message for you and for your home. Your home matters. Don't let anybody tell you different. It is time that you are able to have your family following after the commandments of the Most High Yah. Love Him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your neighbor, and that includes your family, as yourself. So thank you for tuning in once again to Ashonda at Large, where we discuss faith, family, and the future of our community. As always, love yourself without hating your enemies. And until next time, Yah bless and Salamah.